Mark Rogers TV and SEC Breakdown, starting a series where we're looking at some of the top positions across the country all time, some of the iconic positions in college football, and choosing our top 10. So we bring in Stephen M. Smith of Touchdown Alabama to help us out on the quarterback position at Alabama, possibly off the top of my head, the only position in college football at the quarterback position that has 3 Pro Football Hall of Famers. So, Stephen M., thanks so much for joining us. This is a fun historical exercise, so we'll let you start at number 10, and I'll include my top 10 as well.
Well, number 10 I have for Alabama, I have Andrew Zhao, a guy that played for the Crimson Tide from 1997 to 98 to about 2001. I mean, here's a guy in Andrew Zhao that had to battle Tyler Watts for the starting job a lot during his career at Alabama. But during Zhao's senior season, really came on strong, earned the starting job away from Watts, and really played well, especially in the Iron Bowl. A guy that was very talented, had to fight off a lot of competition, but Andrew Zhao, one of the more talented quarterbacks in Bama history, so I have him at number 10. At number 9, I look at Brodie Croyle. A lot of people are going to raise an eyebrow, but Brodie Croyle, to me, when you talk about arm talent, one of the best arms to ever come through the capstone, just injuries. Brodie Croyle had shoulder issues, had a couple of knee and leg issues, but I go back to 2005 for just a minute, that miracle, kind of a magical season under Mike Shula. The Crimson Tide went 10-2. That year, you really saw Brodie Croyle connect with Tyrone Prothro and the plethora of other receivers on that team. Of course, Keith Brown, one of them. But Brodie Croyle, you take away the injuries, Mark, he was a guy, tremendous arm strength, could put the ball on a dime on a frozen rope to wherever you wanted it to go to. But Brodie Croyle at number 9. Number 8, I have Jay Barker. He didn't really wow you, I guess, with fantastic statistics, but a guy that did win Alabama a championship in the 1992-93 season on a team that Gene Stallings had it predicated on defense, a defense that had the likes of George Teague and a lot of big-time playmakers that were about taking the ball away, creating sacks. Of course, you had the bookends with John Copeland and Eric Curry. So when you have those two guys, and Antonio Langham in that defensive backfield as well, you didn't really need to have a big-time offense, but Jay Barker was able to get some things done in the passing game. So he's at 8. At number 7, I have Walter Lewis, one of those rare African-American quarterbacks in the 1980s that just had a knack for making big plays under head coach Walter Perkins. Now, Walter Ray Perkins kind of falls under that same regime as Bill Curry, 2 guys that were understudies of Paul Bear Bryant, but just couldn't generate that magic that Paul Bryant had, especially when it came down to beating Auburn. But Walter Lewis, one of the better quarterbacks during the era of the 80s. At number 6 is my wild card. I have John Parker Wilson. And the reason being, a guy that came from Hoover High School, 2002, 2003. When he came to Alabama, he had the physical gifts, Mark. He had the body type. He had the arm talent. He had the accuracy. At times when he would move around in the pocket, it would kind of scare you because you didn't know how set he was in his mechanics as he was able to move around. But a guy that passed for over 7,000 yards, held every passing statistic in the book for Alabama during the 2000 era prior to A.J. McCarron, of course, stepping on campus. John Parker Wilson, one of those front runners during the 2008 season to kind of build the blocks, build the foundation for what was to come at Alabama under Nick Saban. John Parker Wilson, the quarterback of the Crimson Tide during that 2008 season in which Alabama went 12-2. It spanked Auburn 36-0. It beat LSU in overtime. Things didn't go according to plan in the postseason against Florida, losing to a great team that had the likes of Tim Tebow and Urban Meyer at head coach, and also getting smashed by Utah 31-17, excuse me, in the 2009 Sugar Bowl. But John Parker Wilson, a building block, I have him at number 6. Number 5, I have Greg McElroy. Talk about this, the young man that at first Alabama didn't want. Alabama was actually eyeing Tim Tebow during that 2007, 2008 tenure, but it wanted Tebow, couldn't get Tebow. It ends up getting McElroy. McElroy recruited by Shula in 2006. He gets Coach Saban from 2007, to 2010, and Greg McElroy leading the Crimson Tide to a national championship in the 2009 season, completing 60.5% of his throws, 2,508 passing yards, 17 touchdowns, and 4 interceptions. So he's at number 5. Number 4, I have A.J. McCarron, arguably the winningest quarterback in Alabama history right now, 36-4 as a starter, holding all the Alabama passing records to this date. And plus, when you are a part of 3 national championships, including 2 as a starter, there's nothing to sneeze at there. Number 3, I have Bart Starr, and somebody that played under Paul Bear Bryant, but he was more so not just a player, college player. He was also doing some military work, a part of Alabama. But then if you look at Starr, his career in the NFL, winning the first 2 Super Bowls, Super Bowl 1 and 2 with the Green Bay Packers, and just an elder statesman, a Renaissance man, and a quality guy. So number 3, I have Bart Starr. Number 2, I have Joe Namath, a guy that Paul Bear Bryant had a lot of back and forth with, kind of his son at Alabama. Joe Namath winning a national championship for the Crimson Tide during in the 1960s. I want to say it was either 1961 or 1964, but one of those 2 seasons, I believe it was 64, was the one where Joe Namath really got together, winning a national championship with Alabama. He also won a Super Bowl with the New York Jets, beating the Baltimore Colts, a group that had the likes of Johnny Unitas. Number 1, I have Ken Stabler, the other guy that Paul Bear Bryant was ever so close to, came so close to winning a national championship as a starter during the 1966 and 67 seasons. Unfortunately, it didn't all buy in. It didn't all work out. But you talk about a tremendous NFL career for Stabler. He really ushered in the scrambling, extending the play type of quarterback. Hall of Fame career, won a Super Bowl with the Oakland Raiders, the LA Raiders. Really did a great job. A perennial Pro Bowl selection, a 2-time All-Pro, a guy that led the league in touchdowns in 1974 and 1976, went on to be a commentator for the first couple of seasons after his retirement. Of course, his tragic passing, but those are my top 10.
All right, Stephen, here's the deal with me. This is a difficult exercise because you've got players from all eras. So we know that the statistics are going to favor recent quarterbacks because there are more games played. The passing offense is more sophisticated. The defenses are hindered. So there's just more passing yardage and touchdowns being compiled now. So to compare statistics is difficult because then you can throw out anything pre-1980-85 in looking at a program like Alabama. You have to factor in winning to a certain extent, of course, and the quarterback given more credit possibly than he deserves and more blame when the team doesn't win, but winning tied to the quarterback more than any other position, and then just sheer playing ability and taking into account those players around the quarterback and how well they contributed or hindered the success of the quarterback. So here's my top 10. I'm kind of all over the place, and I did not take into regard NFL qualifications at all. So if those were taken into consideration, pro football success, then you've got Bart Starr, Joe Namath, and Kenny Stabler, the top 3 in some sort of order. I would go Starr, Stabler, and Namath if I was going and rating NFL quarterbacks, but I'm rating completely based on their college experience. So at number 10, I've got at number 10, and I've got lists going all over the place trying to pull this thing together. is I like Scott Hunter, quarterback there at Alabama from 1968 to 1970 is when he was quarterbacking under Bear Bryant. And Scott Hunter, still to this day, number 7 ranked on the all-time passing list in regards to career yardage. Scott Hunter, a guy that also scrambled and played for the Green Bay Packers after Bart Starr was there in the late 60s to early 70s. Mike Shula, a quarterback at number 9, that had some marginal success in regards to wins and losses, but 83 through 86, not a stellar time under Ray Perkins, but still the team winning 9-10 ball games per year and getting to bowl games. And Mike Shula still number 10 on the all-time passing list at Alabama. At number 8, let's see if I can find my number 8 guy here. I also like Walter Lewis, a guy that I remember watching play in the early to mid 80s for the Alabama Crimson Tide, and a guy, as you explained, between 1980 and 83 could really throw the ball downfield and was a dual threat quarterback during that stay that bridged Paul Bear Bryant into the Ray Perkins era for Bama. All right, at number 7, I like Andrew Zhao. Zhao was a guy that I covered up close and personal there in the late 1990s. Not the best time for Alabama football, as Mike Dubose led some better teams to the SEC championship game, but they also had some very down teams. And still to this day, Andrew Zhao is 4th all-time on the passing list for Alabama between 1998 and 2001 in terms of career yardage. All right, let's see at number 6. My number 6 guy is Jay Barker. And you very well described Jay Barker's contribution on the field, very much the game manager of the modern Alabama quarterbacks that we've seen. Didn't light up the scoreboard, but did just enough to complement the defense. He was the 1994 SEC Player of the Year, and of course took Alabama to the 92 national championship over Miami, barely lost a game, had a decent 93 season, and then the 94 team, people will remember, came within 1 point of defeating Florida in the SEC title game, where they would have played for another national championship. And even though the 92 team gets all the recognition as a championship team, the 94 team went 12-1, defeated Ohio State in the Citrus Bowl, and finished number 4 in the country. All right, number 5, I like Greg McElroy as well. I believe, Stephen, you had McElroy at number 5. Game manager again, made very few mistakes, was a highly touted quarterback coming out of Texas, where he set the Texas career touchdown and single season marks there. Greg McElroy moves on to the NFL with the New York Jets, and of course brought Alabama a national championship after that 2009 season for the first one in 17 years. At number 4, Kenny Stabler, very aptly put by you, Stephen, a guy that brought the scrambling nature and threat to the quarterback position there in the SEC. And Kenny Stabler won big for Alabama in the mid-60s in regards to following up the efforts of Joe Namath. And so here's my top 3. So at number 3, I'm going to go way back on this one. Harry Gilmer is a guy that did it all for Alabama, and you got to throw stats again in the comparison of eras. So I'm going to Harry Gilmer, who won a national championship going way back for Alabama, SEC Player of the Year, All SEC, All-American in 1945, first pick in the 48 draft. He punted, he played DB, and again, had a great career for the Crimson Tide. The final 2 for me, A.J. McCarron. Exceptional leader, quarterback, threw the ball downfield, was given more the keys to the offense later in his career than he was early on, won multiple national championships in 11 and 12, and I just think he pretty much did it all for Alabama, the ultimate winner, kind of the NFL or college football's version of Tom Brady. And then at number 1, I'm going with Joe Namath, who had just the rocket arm, won like crazy in national championships at Alabama, and then turned that into a very successful Pro Football Hall of Fame career. So no Bart Starr for me. If you look up the career, injury-plagued junior and senior seasons didn't set him up as a high draft pick in the NFL. But of course, then he turns out to be a 2-time Super Bowl champion, and people need to also take into effect that Bart Starr, in addition to the Super Bowls, pre-Super Bowl, won 3 other NFL championships. So 5 NFL titles for Bart Starr, but he does not make my top 10 for the Crimson Tide. John Parker Wilson, just off the map. You mentioned him. He's in your top 10. Brodie Croyle, Mike Shula, we talked about. Zau's in my top 10. Richard Todd, who had a successful run there late for the Crimson Tide, came in. It didn't have a successful run early in the career, but won a national championship. Blake Sims, of course, had the one huge season. If he could have extended that out to a career, who knows? But he is the all-time passing leader for a single season, as you well know. And Jake Coker, actually number 2 to Sims as a single season passer, won the national title just last year. But those guys just with the one season in the books as the starter. Pat Trammell can't be forgotten as a national champion in 1961 either. All right, Stephen, I think we did some good work here.
I think we did some excellent work, man. I think the Alabama folklore will be very, very proud of us.
Yes, it's one of the iconic positions in college football. Alabama quarterback, again, 3 Pro Football Hall of Famers with Namath, Starr, and Stabler. And again, the untimely death of Kenny Stabler this past year. Stephen M. Smith, thanks so much for helping us out. Rank the top 10 quarterbacks for Alabama. We invite people to comment and let us know where we might have missed it. Give us your top 10 as well. All right, Stephen, thank you.
No problem, Mark. Thank you.